Hi, this is Charles Kelly, Money Tips. Welcome, welcome. Well, the news has come out that we are officially in recession in the UK. I think Japan is in recession. Germany's going through some problems, certainly has been in recession. And this is after figures show that the economy dipped in the last quarter, and it's dipped now. It's gone into negative growth for the last 2 quarters. I'm just going to share a quick screen with you here so we can show you in more detail. Okay, the economy has shrunk after people have cut back on spending. Now, the day before, we had some good news from the economy, and that was that inflation was holding at 4%, and there might be a chance of an interest rate cut, perhaps. So it was good news for mortgages and that sort of thing. But then the bad news come for the government, and this is the worst possible news for them, that the economy has shrunk. And obviously, if you use this blunt instrument of higher interest rates, and then people are also hit with higher energy costs, which have doubled and trebled for a lot of people, then you've got oil prices, you've got food prices running at much higher than 4% inflation. Obviously, people are going to stop spending, and that will bring inflation down because prices will not be going up. And you look at the shops now, they are starting to reduce prices and things are starting to ease off a bit. But the economy, excuse me, shrunk by larger than expected 0.3% between October and December. So basically, it's in a mild recession. It's not, I mean, I've lived through really bad recessions, but you still do see shops closing down. Almost every day you see a business go out of business. Then, of course, another shop comes along. I mean, there's always one, isn't there? And they come along and think they can do better, and then they go out of business. But, that's part of a longer term trend as well. But definitely, I mean, body shops gone into administration, although that might be part of a long term decline. But certainly these figures of low growth are fueled by lower spending before Christmas, lower spending in the nighttime economy, and house building. If people are buying less houses and they're not spending so much on their houses, that will affect growth as well. But the Chancellor said the economy is resilient. I just love it. Oh, the economy is resilient. This is Jeremy Hunt. I mean, do you feel resilient? I mean, I don't feel, I feel I'm resilient, but a lot of people out there are thinking I'm not resilient. Things are tough for me. Of course, we've all got to be resilient, but the government, all they do is really is they need to create a situation where the tax is right, the rule of law, the general conditions are good for business. They don't really create any business. In fact, all they do is tax us, take our money and spend it. They blow it. That's what they do. Local government, which I was in, they just collect a load of money and spend it. And if they don't spend their budget, they think, well, I might lose that budget, so I better make sure we spend it before the end of the tax year. So we're seeing lots of road plans at the moment from local councils. I mean, look at this one. I don't know if you can see this very well, but it's UK pays TikTok stars to stop the boats. They're basically paying TikTok influencers from Albania to do a TikTok campaign to tell people not to come to the UK. It's more likely to encourage, must TikTok go to the UK? Why not? That's all they're going to see is go to the UK. And they paid these people £30,000. I mean, it's a sign of desperation, if you ask me. But that's what the government do. In fact, government borrowing, we just switched to another slide here. The government borrows money from month to month because it can't make ends meet. It's like living on a credit card. If you were getting to the end of the month, you've run out of money, you need to pay this bill and that bill. You charge it to your credit card, perhaps, but the government can do this ad infinitum because they can just print money to pay it off, or just spread the loan out for further and further. So this is a figure here. Look, 2022 to 23 financial year, the government borrowed, you know how much? 130 billion pounds. 130 billion pounds. A billion is 1,000 million. I mean, you could live on that for the rest of your life, for the rest of your children's, for the rest of your grandchildren's life, for the rest of your whole family going ahead could live off a billion. And this is 130 billion, which was 5 billion higher than the previous year. And I know we've had problems. I know we've had the unmentionable, and we've had a war and all sorts of serious issues. But a lot of this inflation goes back to this borrowing, printing money, fiscal, whatever you call it, and this money creation, I believe, has caused the inflation, the higher inflation, and then leading to higher interest rates. But in December alone, just like December, oh, let's go out and spend some money on the credit card at Christmas. Well, they spent 7.8 billion borrowed. Okay, now that was less than the amount borrowed the previous year, but it's still a lot of money, nearly 8 billion. Now, the total amount of what the government owes is called the national debt. How much is that? 2.67 trillion, right? 2.67 trillion, which is a figure most people can't even imagine. And you can see here how it's gone up. And, from the year 2000, it's going up and up and up. So, of course, you can blame what happened in 2020, 21 and that sort of thing, where it did shoot up. But you can see it's been going up and up and up for many, many years, right? This is as a percentage of GDP, gross domestic product. So our debt is nearly at 100% of GDP. So that's pretty serious, right? So things are not great in the economy. There are barely, we're just treading water, really. So we've got to just do our own thing. What's your economy? I think about your economy. Is your economy in recession, or are you doing something about it as a business person or as an employee to make more of what you've got and manage your money better, maybe better investments, or maybe get a different job where you can earn a bit more money? Now, as I said, inflation's at 4%. Interest rates are starting to come down. We're seeing better interest rates out there. So that's great news for people who've coming off a fixed rate maybe this year. I've got one myself coming up, a renewal coming up in September, October. I was worried about it. I thought, well, I'm paying this amount. What am I going to pay when it renews? And I haven't got much choice on this one because of the type of property. So I was concerned. I think, what do I do? Do I sell it? Do I pay down some debt? What do I do? But now things are looking a little bit better, but it's still going to be a big jump. It's still probably going to go from double from what I'm paying now to what it will end up of. And that is on top of extra bills and that sort of thing, because it's a HMO. It's on top of extra bills and gas and electricity bills and all the rest of it. And when there's a repair to do now, I'm just horrified by the cost of it. Like, they say, what? It costs that much to do this little job? Yeah, well, this is, and they explain it. So, well, this is the materials. They've trebled in price, and this is that, and this is that. So the cost of doing something is just a fortune now. So all these things are hitting landlords. And bear in mind, I think I mentioned this last week. Landlords, there's a lot of landlords in trouble now. Landlords in mortgage arrears double in a year, double the amount of landlords in arrears. Now, landlords have been a pretty resilient lot. They don't normally go into arrears. Buy-to-let mortgages are a pretty safe bet, but they're now going into arrears. More than doubled in the first 3 months of 2023. 124% rise was due to the result of high mortgage rates. Obviously, right? Mortgage rates have really kicked people in the nuts, and that's why they're not spending so much money. And then these higher mortgage rates are passed on to tenants. So when they renew their tenancy, tenants are jumping up and down saying, well, why they increase my rent? Well, a lot of landlords didn't increase rents, as I didn't, for many, many years. And now they're complaining because the rents are going up to the market rate. And then you've got these people from various charities saying landlords should not be allowed to evict people, on a no-fault basis. They should go to court and prove why they need to evict people on a Section 8. So Section 21, the abolition of Section 21 has not gone away. That's coming sometime this year, according to the National Landlords Association. So that is coming, and that's going to make life tough for landlords. And then you combine that with Section 24, where people with properties in their own names are now paying more tax, thanks to another Conservative Chancellor, George Osborne, who really kicked landlords in the teeth by bringing in this tax. And this is starting to hit people now, because when it was a low interest rate and you could not offset that against your tax, maybe you're not too bothered. It's only 1,000 a year or 2,000 a year. But now the interest rates jumped up. Your costs have jumped up. You can't offset it against your tax because it's in your own name. And this is starting to hit people. So a lot of landlords are just had enough. They've had enough of the government and the attitude towards landlords, and that some of them are in a sort of negative territory when it comes to the rent not even covering the mortgage. So that's bad news. They're having to subsidize that property. So it looks, UK Finance said 13,570 buy-to-let landlords are in arrears at the final quarter of last year, and there are nearly 2 million mortgages being repaid by landlords in total. So it's not a huge amount, but it's still significant that landlords are in arrears with mortgages when you think, well, they're borrowing 75%, the rent should easily cover that. Why would they get into arrears? Or unless they're subsidizing their rent and subsidizing their lifestyle because of other costs. I don't know. There's also, it could be that the property, that they've got a bad tenant in there, they're not paying their rent. It can take 6-8 months to get a tenant out because they can go to court and argue this and argue that, and the soppy judge says, oh yeah, we'll throw the case out, come back in 2 months time. Oh my god, when are you going to get rid of this tenant from hell? Another landlord I know, she had a tenant in, basically wrecked the place, not like didn't pull out baths or anything, but did a lot of damage around the place, which is going to cost a few £1,000s to put right. Then when she was asked to leave on a Section 21, she said, no, I'm not going, I've got nowhere to go. Stayed on for a few more months, 3 months, until she was ready to go. That was in the middle of the winter then when she left. So it's a difficult time to let it. And she's been doing the place up since. And now the tenant's arguing about the deposit. She said, no, I didn't do any damage. There was already that damage here, and there was already that hole in the wall, and the garden turf ripped up and all the rest of it. She did a lot of damage in there, and caused a lot of problems with the neighbours. But if you didn't have that Section 21, you'd have to go to court and prove all this, and it would be very, very difficult when they're arguing against it. So we talked about the government borrowing, Section 21, Section 24. If you want to do something about that, by the way, I think the way to look at that is to think about maybe moving that into a limited company. But if you do it in the right way, you can avoid the taxes that you might incur, like stamp duty, etc., and capital gains, if you do it in the right way. Now, I've got an accountant specialist who can help you with that and give you some advice and tips. So if you're interested in that, give me a shout. Email me, charles@charleskelly.net, or just you can see my contact on the bottom of wherever you're looking at this, and I'll put you in touch with them. House prices. Let's have a look at house prices. Now, the official figures from the ONS, I haven't got them right in front of me, but the official figures from ONS said that house prices had fallen slightly in a year, 1.25, something like that. But according to the Halifax figures, the prices have jumped up a little bit in January. So the highest for a year as mortgage rates continue to ease. The Halifax said, this is the Britain's biggest mortgage lender. So it's their figures, not the official figures. Said a typical home now costs 291,000, an average a jump of 2.5% from January 23. So you can look at all these figures in different time scales from January to January or for a whole year. It's all a bit of much of the much. Some say it's gone up by a little bit, some say it's gone down by a little bit, but house prices have been fairly flat, really. We know that in the last year, but it could start to ease upwards as we see mortgage rates come down. Okay, and this is just a graphic that you can see on the inflation figures. 4% in January 24. See, it was over 10, it was nearly 11% at one stage, wasn't it? And that was killing people. And we know that, if you take out the essential things out of that average inflation rate, we know that people were paying a fortune for things like food, oil and gas, petrol, and that sort of thing. It really went up a lot. So there you go, 4%. It's coming down again, which is good. Interest rates coming down. That's good as well. So let's just keep going, row your own boat. I just want to mention things on debt because we talked about the government debt, but a lot of people are suffering from their credit card debt, and we know that hundreds of thousands of people are in problems with credit card debts, and I think we're going to see a record rise in things like arrangements with creditors, even bankruptcies, and charities. Like if you're in this problem, if you are in a credit card debt situation, talk to charities like Citizens Advice, Step Change, that sort of thing, and get yourself sorted out. And always talk to your lender. Don't bury your head in the sand, because what you want to avoid is what's called a default, where you haven't paid for a few months. You're ignoring the lender's letters. You won't, you look at these envelopes, you think, oh God, it's from the lender. And you look down the window of it and you can see the red in it and you know where it's from. You look at the back, the postcode. I can't face it, can't face it. Don't do that. Always open, or get somebody else to help you with it. Get an advisor in or somebody to help you through this. But never bury your head in the sand. And always talk to them, I'm having some problems. You can get a freeze. There's a government scheme to maybe freeze things for 3 months. So have a look at that. And then you can get some breathing space while you gather your thoughts. But the important thing is to clear that credit card debt as soon as possible. But as I said, a lot of people are in trouble with credit card debts. And unlike the government, you can't just print money to pay it off, right? You're not allowed to have a printing press in your house. You can't just do that. But the government does. The government can just print off money, a quantitative easing, they call it. So for credit card people, obviously, if you're in a position to pay off credit card, that's the best thing to do, is to get rid of it. You don't have to pay the minimum payment on your credit card. If you just pay the minimum on the credit card, it can take as long as 27 years to clear it. So, and just paying an extra 10 or 20 pound a month extra on that will bring that time drastically down and clear that debt much quicker and save you thousands of pounds in interest. Remember that. Okay. So some good news, inflation figures, some bad news that the economy is slightly in recession. But the main thing is, what is your economy doing? What are you doing to change your economy? And what are you doing to literally, boost your own output, your own GDP? And the way to do that is to work on yourself. As Jim Rohn used to say, work on yourself first, or if you will improve, everything will improve for you. And just finally mention that I do run weekly webinars, most weeks at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday, where I go through some money management tips and tips to help you become financially free, so that by managing your money better, you'll have more to invest, where to invest it, how to benefit from assets and compound interest. I go over all of that on a 1-hour webinar, absolutely free. So please join me. I'll put a link up to it, and you'll probably see a link somewhere around this video. So please join me, because remember, if you're working on yourself, if you're working on your game, you can go out there and you can change things for you. Don't sort of sit there and think, well, the country's in recession, I'm in recession. No, lots of businesses thrive in recessions. You'll find some businesses out there doing very well, some are doing badly. And lots of people in recessions kind of give up and just stay home, but you don't have to do that. You can change things. You can change things for yourself. Education, learning new skills maybe, or looking at the thousands of ways you can earn money from things like side hustles. So we'll talk about that in the webinar on Wednesday. Until then, thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you again next time. Next week, I'm going to have an interview, by the way, with an accountant talking about Section 24 and the impact that's having on property owners who have properties in their own name. And we'll look for some solutions for you. So that's next week's podcast. But in the meantime, if you've got any problems with Section 24, drop me a line at charleskelly@charleskelly.net. Thanks very much. Bye for now.